Backlash over the Biden administration's response to the border crisis reached a boiling point today when the U.S. Special Envoy to Haiti resigned in protest over the White House's, quote, inhumane treatment of migrants. And Biden's support for interim Prime Minister Ariel Henry revealing just how intense the administration's internal turmoil over the situation is. As of 6 a.m. yesterday, Fox News reported there are 6,722 migrants, 4,742 families, and 418 single adult females, and more than 300 pregnant women gathered under the bridge at Del Rio.
Meanwhile, Twitter had a brief meltdown this morning over an NBC News report that suggested that the Biden administration was seeking a private contractor to run what seemed like a migrant detention center at Guantanamo Bay. That turned out not to be particularly the case, but there is a very fraught history between Guantanamo Bay and Haitian migrants. So it turns out that they have, in fact, been had a kind of migrant holding center on Guantanamo Bay that holds between 20 and 150 people who are picked up at sea. And this is something that's been going on since early 2000s. The contract is expiring in 2022. They're looking to expand that contract. Under the George H.W. Bush administration, when there was a kind of massive influx then of Haitian migrants, he sent more than 10,000 Haitians to Guantanamo Bay. This is something that's been memory hold a little bit, and it was caught up in AIDS hysteria because in the U.S. people were like, oh wait, Haitians are coming over here, they're going to spread AIDS over the whole country, and so they moved 10 plus thousand people over to Guantanamo Bay. Trump had floated the idea, why don't we just send all the migrants over to Guantanamo Bay? But this is a good reason we ought not to have Guantanamo Bay.
Well, and I imagine that the existing contract, which is for a smaller number, like you said, 20 to 100 plus
for people you pick up in the Caribbean.
Right, and a result of the ongoing wet foot, dry foot policy that bizarrely says if you make it onto land, you're clear for Cubans for refugee status, but if you're caught at sea, you are not. But the good news, clarity from DHS, we are not going to be shipping Haitians to Guantanamo Bay.
From the border, at least.
From the border, at least. But this remains an ongoing problem. I mean, the numbers are stark of who are currently gathered within the country. But what is interesting to me is this, from the more conservative perspective. We believe in some degree of border security, at least having a functional border where you know who's coming in, you know who's going out, and that there has to be some sort of a reformed process for legally migrating into the country. What I feel happens, and I'd love to hear your response from kind of the progressive lens, is Democrats don't want that, but then they have massive influxes of illegal immigrants that they don't have any way to process or to deal with. So then they actually revert to the very inhumane policy of deporting them. So the Obama administration did record numbers of deportations. Now we see Biden's deportations juxtaposed with what we did even in the Trump administration, and it's significant. So it's sort of this self-perpetuating problem of Democrats want to do what they portray as the humane thing and let people into the country. Then you have Kamala Harris saying don't come because they don't actually have a process by which to let these people in to resettle them in the country. I mean, what's the answer here?
Well, the immigration system is broken. And you're right that there are some Democrats that don't want to deal with it at all. Midterms are always around the corner. They would just rather that our completely broken system stay in place, and which then ends up creating all of these inhumane situations. And the Biden administration is extra culpable in this case, and the envoy put it well. The Biden administration continues to support, as you said, Ariel Henry as the leader of the Haitian government. He has been charged, or the prosecutor that he has tried to fire has said that he ought to be charged with the assassination of the former president. And so the United States is going to support, not just help to hunt him down and arrest him, but is actually going to support having in power a man that is implicated in the very recent assassination of the Haitian president, which has fueled so much instability, which has then contributed to the outflow of migrants. That's not only why people are coming. People are also flowing up from South America. As Brianna Joy Gray talked about yesterday, a lot of Haitian migrants were brought in as low-wage labor to help Brazil with its construction of stadiums for the World Cup and for the Olympics. and now can't find work, and so are working their way north. But for the United States to be supporting the man who is accused of assassinating the president and creating the conditions, while then deporting people back into the conditions that they are supportive of, is, as the envoy said, deeply humane, and kudos to them for resigning in protest.
So, and what I'm going to be waiting to see from the Biden administration is, so what's the plan to deal with the Haitian migrants who are here right now? They are living in what are, squalid conditions, crowded, as I said, 300 pregnant women in this, outdoor facility, presumably no running water, not the right hygiene standards. How are they going to deal with them? And is deportation the only answer? Because it seems to go against, every tenet of what they ran on. The kind of existential problem here is that their policies are encouraging more people to continue coming.
So what they're trying to do is, as you say, they're trying to deport as many people quickly as they can qualify for deportation under this Title 42, this Trump program that they're continuing. They're also then moving as many people who are eligible in some way for some type of asylum status to other places. They're moving them to, I believe, Fort Bliss is being used, as Fort Bliss was used as well for the kind of Central American migrants that were pouring across the border, and so they're moving people as fast as they can. But you can't just move 15,000 people right. overnight. You can only move so many people by bus, and propping and setting up locations, it takes time. Well, and licensing them takes time, making sure that people are safe where you're taking them. And Democrats are too chicken to fund it appropriately. And so the agency that is charged with doing this is completely underfunded, because they don't want to take a political vote that says, well, here's another $3 billion or whatever you need to do this. And so they're just trying to stitch it together.
Well, and what can't be lost from this broader discussion, too, is we're also dealing with potentially having to resettle up to 60,000 Afghan interpreters and their families who helped serve the U.S. abroad and who have fled Afghanistan because of genuine risk to life and limb, who are now trying to come to the U.S. So we're going to have to start weighing the factors here of who needs asylum status, who needs refugee status, who are we able to house, do we have the funding to take care of? Because, I say this as somebody who thinks what I see is very inhumane and heartless, but we also can't just let the whole world into our country. There do have to be some sort of standards of who is the most in need and how we're able to help them, and to actually have the funding to do it the right way.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard joined the fray on the border last night, tweeting that, quote, "The Biden-Harris open door policy has been a disaster. It needs to end now. The main beneficiaries of open borders are the gangs, cartels, and human traffickers. The Trump policy of having people wait on the other side of the border worked and needs to be reinstated." Meanwhile, the White House's use of Title 42 to expel asylum seekers portrays anything but a, quote, open door policy in the 9 months since Biden took office. His administration has already expelled over 200,000 more migrants without hearings under Title 42 than Trump did his entire term. Title 42 means you don't get a hearing. Tulsi's argument there seems to be like, as long as it's happening somewhere else, then it's better. Like which is just, if you want to talk about inhumane, fine. If you want to say that as long as I don't see an evil, then there is no evil, okay, enjoy your kind of moral clarity there. But whether the misery and the heartbreaking conditions are south of the Rio Grande or north of the Rio Grande doesn't change the misery for the people that are experiencing them.
Well, Tulsi likes to be on every side of every issue, but I would say this. In the Trump administration, I think we made some marginal progress. We had the Remain in Mexico policy, and we also allowed embassies within the Northern Triangle countries to process asylum claims in those countries, so that once they were approved, they could.
Which doesn't work, because it takes years.
But real quick, I would say this. This goes back to the point again, we've got Afghan refugees, we have Haitians who are in deep need. We need to prioritize those who are the most in need. The biggest reform that the system needs to deal with the immediate influx of immigrants is to determine who has the most credible immediate claims. Because if you're purely coming for economic opportunities, I'm sorry, then you need to get at the back of the line. Somebody who's being hunted down by cartels or who has immediate risk to life and limb needs to be the first person to go ahead. And we need to have a process by which we do that. But instead, it seems like we're sort of just deporting willy-nilly willy-nilly and letting anyone come in only to be set back, and at times, at the cost of their lives.
And we'll have to leave it there. It's an interesting and fraught discussion. We'll have more Rising right after this.